Today on Inspired Money.
To go to your point, yes, I did find a problem there. And I said to myself, okay, this is really interesting. I wonder if I opened up a learning center, could I teach entrepreneurship, coding, and robotics together in one education? So that's when I took the leap and I said, okay, someone who works for me, who does real estate with me, he lives in Newark, New Jersey. I live in New York City. He wants to help me with this. Let's just pick a spot in between us. So we chose Hoboken, New Jersey. Let's open up a location and let's market it, and let's see if people would actually want their kids to learn this, skill set, entrepreneurship, coding, and robotics. And it filled instantly. And we realized that we were going to have something that was really valuable here.
This is episode 175 with entrepreneur and founder of Rocket Club, Alex Hodara. Welcome to Inspired Money. My name is Andy Wong, a managing partner at Runnymede Capital Management. Each week, we bring you an interesting person to help you get inspired, shift your perspectives on money, and achieve incredible things. From making it to giving it away, Inspired Money means making a difference, creating something bigger than oneself, and maybe, just maybe, making the world a better place. Thank you for joining me. Hey, Inspired Moneymaker, welcome back. If this is your first time with us, welcome. We've had a bunch of entrepreneurs on the show recently: John Miles, Birud Sheth, Guy Kawasaki. All three of these guys kind of lived and breathed business. Do you think that entrepreneurship can be taught, or are you born that way? Our guest today, Alex Hodara, says that entrepreneurship can definitely be taught. He launched Rocket Club, an entrepreneurship, coding, and robotics academy for kids aged 7 to 14. Alex is a pretty extraordinary entrepreneur in his own right. He didn't just start lemonade stands as a kid. At 15, he was importing products from China for resale. He launched his company, Hodara Real Estate Group, while still a junior at Boston University. You're going to hear all about that. In this episode, we get a glimpse into the entrepreneur's mind, building a curriculum designed to expose kids to as much as possible to inspire and help them decide what they want to be when they're older, and how Alex is investing his own money to cultivate entrepreneurs of the future. Now let's get inspired with Alex Hodara. Alex, welcome to Inspired Money. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Andy.
Let's jump right in. What's your earliest childhood memory of money?
When I was a kid, I was really into playing with a yo-yo. I got quite good. I don't know if I'm still good now, but I remember being in San Francisco with my family on vacation and doing yo-yo tricks on the side of the street, putting down a hat to raise some money. I remember that being probably one of my first entrepreneurial ventures as a kid.
You were busking with a yo-yo.
I guess so, yeah. I remember that being like the highlight of that trip. Maybe next time I go out to San Francisco, I should try it again, see how much I can raise.
I read that you started your first profitable business when you were just 15 years old. What was that first business?
So the first business I ever started was PokerChipKing.com. My friends and I were all obsessed with the World Series of Poker that was really popular on ESPN at the time. After school, we'd all get together and play poker. And I realized that none of us had a really good set of chips. And around that time, my dad and I were playing fantasy football, and we were in a league where we won a decent amount of money. And he told me, you can do anything you want with this money. Do you want to go on vacation? What do you want to do with this? And I said, I'd always wanted to start a business. And I see a real void in the market right now. All of my friends are playing poker. They need poker chips. We don't have a good set. It'd be really interesting if I could find inexpensive chips, but high quality chips, and then brand them as my own and sell them. So I found 100 sets of clay poker chips from Ningbo, China. It was really fun. I was able to negotiate the import of the poker chips. And one day when they actually arrived, I got a call from my mom. I was in school, and she told me that there was 3,000 pounds of poker chips in our driveway. So I needed to come home. So came home, moved all those indoors, and I started selling them through PokerChipKing.com, and then also through eBay and other online platforms. And that was my first real taste of entrepreneurship. And from then on, I just had the entrepreneurship bug. In my childhood, I never really felt that special. I never really felt like I was doing anything super unique. And all of a sudden, through this venture, I started to feel like I'm doing something that's separating me from my peers. I'm doing something that's interesting, and that really gave me a lot of confidence and really helped me roll into my future ventures.
Where do you think you got that early entrepreneurship mindset from? Where did you learn that?
Early on, putting my hat down in San Francisco, yo-yoing, I don't know. I don't know where that came from. I would say, my parents, my dad was a lawyer, my mom a social worker. So neither of them entrepreneurial at all. I think my parents were always trying to help me find what I would be good at when I was a kid. They were very open to me trying different things. So when my dad saw that I had real interest in being an entrepreneur, he couldn't necessarily, help show me the way, right? Because he wasn't one himself, but he was very supportive of what I wanted to do. One thing that, when we talk more about Rocket Club here, you'll see that I really think that so many of the members that come into Rocket Club, they never even thought about starting a business. They've never thought about coding or robotics. After you get a taste of it and you feel special about what you're doing, I think that's where the excitement comes from. And then you just keep building on top of that. So there wasn't someone that I specifically looked up to or anything like that. I think I got really lucky that I fell into entrepreneurship at an early age.
So are you always looking for that opportunity, a gap that needs to be filled, like coming up with a solution? Because it seemed like you kind of leapt into another big business as a junior in college, which very few people do.
It's an interesting question. I've listened to a bunch of your podcasts now. And what I found interesting is a lot of entrepreneurs who have come on your show have said that they look for problems and they want to solve those problems. I definitely relate to that, but it's slightly different for me. I would say entrepreneurship is just like a passion of mine, something that I'm really excited about. And I just like to jump into an industry and then figure out where, I like to figure out where the issues are and what I can solve. But it's not like I just see an issue that I want to solve and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a business doing that. I do think that I'm very focused on specific things. I don't jump around a lot, which I see as a potential issue for a lot of entrepreneurs where they're jumping around all over the place. To give you a little background on my real estate career, my freshman year of college, I earned my real estate license, which my parents were not super excited about because I was there to go to school. So I wasn't allowed to bring my car up to Boston. I took cabs out to bring my friends to off-campus properties and rented them apartments, mostly like fraternity houses, sorority houses. And by my junior year, I earned my broker's license, the next level of licensing. And I hired 15 of my friends to get the same license, the agent's license that I had. So I had a big office on Commonwealth Avenue. And we just really dominated the Boston University and Northeastern market for rentals.
Wow, that is really cool. I lived on Com Ave for a couple of years, so I know the area well. In retrospect, I do look back just knowing that you constantly have this flow of students coming through. Like, it's just a great market to be in. And it's one that I wish that I had made some investments into, but I just wasn't thinking about it back then.
Where on Com Ave did you live?
Oh, gosh. I was at 1486 Com Ave. I was between BU and BC.
Frank Tramontosi's building. I know it well. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I made that up. So my office was around 700 Com Ave. So it was right above Pease Pub. We had 1,500 square feet right above there. So needless to say, junior and senior year were a lot of fun. I had my graduation party out of my office. It was great. But, that education during college to learn all about the rental market, that was what started my whole career. My junior year, one of my best friends still to today, Jeff Zucker, he came to me because he was looking to buy an investment property. And he knew that I had access to all of these off-market deals because I was renting all of these landlords' buildings to students. So, I learned very quickly how to run numbers on an income statement, revenues, expenses, profit, what cap rates were. And, I sold him my first building in my junior year. That after I made, $25,000 from that first sale, and after each rental, only yielded me like $1,500 to $3,000, I realized very quickly, like I was in the wrong market. I need to start selling these buildings that I'm renting rather than just focusing on renting them. So, I created a really strong PR campaign about how I'm this college kid who has access to all these off-market deals. The cap rates are up in the 7 to 10% range. This is the return on investment that you can expect. I'll manage the building. And I sold 21 buildings before I graduated college. So I had a real chunk of money going into my first year out of college.
You were making a good net income from the sale, right? But then you're managing. So you're doing some property management?
Yeah. So we were managing the buildings as well. My good friend, Vin Bomero, Jeff and I, we started a small management company and we were managing these buildings. But I learned quickly that my skill set was not in management. I am way too sensitive of a person. And I just had a really tough time with that side of the business. So what I did at that time, because I was selling all these buildings so quickly and I knew that I wanted to move into development and actually get my own cash flow from buildings, we basically gave our management company over to Keith Harrington, who runs his own management company. He's really grown with me. He took over that side of the business. And then I went on to start developing buildings.
Alex, when you look back, how much education did you get from BU versus the street education that you were doing, setting up a business that was running while you were in school?
It's tough to say because I think so much of the success that I had in college was just the fallback that I could go back to being a regular college student. So if you're asking me how much I learned in class versus on my own, I learned way more on my own. I always would, but that to me had nothing to do with Boston University. That's just the way that I am. I had no pressure on me. I didn't really feel that much pressure because if this business failed, I could just go back to being a regular college student. I had at that time an incredible amount of real estate experience. My junior year, between my sophomore and junior year, I went to go work at Century 21's international headquarters. So like the international headquarters where they run all the individual brokerages. And because I was a real estate agent, I hadn't opened up my brokerage yet, but because I had that experience, I was able to network and meet the chief operating officer of Century 21. And he actually kept me on as a consultant. He like flew me out to the Bahamas. I got to give a speech for the different brokerages of Century 21. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I looked at it like, okay, this brokerage doesn't work. Like, okay, maybe I'll go work for Century 21 or I'll work for any of these number of brokerages or investment firms because I have this experience. So basically to summarize there, I would have learned outside of the classroom more no matter what the school was like. I personally love Boston University. I think that they've been incredible to me while I was there and since I've left. But just my nature is I would be learning outside the classroom more anyway. It was the same thing for me in middle school and high school as well.
Having that sense of security that you can fall back on something, that you have your education, that you might be able to get a job at Century 21. How does that factor into your willingness to take risk?
It's so important. It is why I was able to take those risks. And as we get it more into Rocket Club in this conversation, that's where my mindset is for these kids, right? The members of Rocket Club are 7 to 14 years old. They've all now started their own businesses. They're learning coding and robotics. If they start a business that fails, they go back to being a 7 to 14-year-old, right? They have no responsibilities in the world other than walking the dog, taking out the trash. So I felt very similarly in college. I felt like I was only looking at upside. And we can talk a little bit more about like my mindset in investing and taking on investors and having a boss and things like that. But to me, all these things are related because I just feel like you have ultimate freedom when you're in school and you have the ability to start playing around with the business because, as I keep saying, if you fail, you just go back to being a regular student.
Okay, I do want to get into Rocket Club, which you founded in 2018. You've been talking about it's not really recognizing like a gap or a need. With Rocket Club, how did the idea come to you?
That's fair. Okay. I'll tell you how, and then we'll come back to if I was trying to fill a void. So my real estate career, I've built now. I act as a general partner in real estate funds. I buy, acquire, renovate, rent, and refinance buildings. I was doing that at the time that I sponsored a coding and robotics competition at my high school in Westfield, New Jersey. And, I was fully focused on real estate at that time. I wasn't looking at trying to figure out the next big thing in education or anything like that. So I sponsored this competition and I was the judge of the competition. These kids who were in middle school and high school, they were developing these unbelievable apps and robotics. And, at the end of the competition, I would talk to them about this, this artificial intelligence app that this kid made, or this robot that this kid made out of a soda can. And I said, okay, what's your plan now? How are you going to market this product or this app? And they looked at me like they had no idea what I was talking about. And I realized that's so interesting. They're so focused on the technology of this product, yet they're not thinking about what they would actually do with it. Around the same time, my nephews, who were 6 and 7 years old, who live in Westfield, they actually came to me with this idea. They wanted to sell geode rocks that they had cracked open and the inside are sparkly. And I thought that was really interesting that they had heard from my sister that I had started a business, and they were like, Uncle Alex, can you help us start this business? So I kind of took that as an interesting challenge. And I asked them to show me how you crack them open. Okay, how much does it cost to buy these rocks? They actually understood each rock cost about $1. Okay, how much do you think you could actually sell these for? Who do you think you'd sell them to? And I filmed a video of them explaining their business. And they even named it. Their last name's Moroz. They named it Moroz Bros Rocks. And so I was like, okay, cool. We have this video. Let's put it online. Let's start a little website, morozbros.com. And let's see if we actually sell any of these. And it was mostly friends and family, but we sold out of all 20 rocks. They understood the expenses, the revenues, the profit. They understood who was buying it and how to market it better. And I just realized that kids who were 6 and 7 could understand these concepts, and they were just incredibly, incredibly marketable. And at the same time, I was playing with these apps and robotics from this competition. I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. I wonder if there's any programs out there that I could invest in. Again, remember, I'm fully focused on my real estate business at the time, but I'm just like, okay, is there a business I can invest in? Because I would like to just give back more into this space. I wish that I had this type of education at that age, and I would really like to give back to that space. So I started to look into franchises, and the only franchises I could find were based on building robotics or coding. And everything I found I thought was extremely boring. I didn't understand how they were keeping kids engaged. And after you're teaching these kids how to build this stuff, you're not teaching them how to market it. So to go to your point, yes, I did find a problem there. And I said to myself, okay, this is really interesting. I wonder if I opened up a learning center, could I teach entrepreneurship, coding, and robotics together in one education? So that's when I took the leap and I said, okay, someone who works for me, who does real estate with me, he lives in Newark, New Jersey. I live in New York City. He wants to help me with this. Let's just pick a spot in between us. So we chose Hoboken, New Jersey. Let's open up a location and let's market it, and let's see if people would actually want their kids to learn this, skill set, entrepreneurship, coding, and robotics. And it filled instantly. And we realized that we were going to have something that was really valuable here.
Is the goal to cultivate the next Elon Musk?
Elon Musk learned how to code, build robotics, and start a business before he was 14 years old. So I do think in a lot of ways, we're teaching the same skill sets. I personally am a huge fan of Elon Musk and what he's doing for the world. I know people are polarized on him, so I don't want to say that we're building the next Elon Musk, but I will say that the skill sets that our members are learning are very similar to what he learned as a kid, what Jeff Bezos learned as a kid, and a lot of other really successful, really the most wealthy people currently on Earth. They learn these skills at an early age.
You're trying to plant the seed in kids who could develop into really impactful entrepreneurs of the future.
Absolutely. And more important to me, though, than building the next Elon Musk is giving kids the opportunity to have freedom. I want to give kids the opportunity to be free, which I believe you only have if you have ultimate amount of options. A huge part of Rocket Club is bringing on special guests for the kids to meet. We since March, we brought on almost 200 guests, including co-founders of companies like Netflix, Beyond Meat, Harry's Razors, Casper Mattress, Birchbox, executive producers and directors from TV shows and movies like the Minions movie, Kids Baking Show, Always Sunny in Philadelphia, brought on presidential candidates. We brought on Andrew Yang. We brought on executives from companies like SpaceX, which Elon Musk started, Uber, Twitter, Snapchat, famous chefs, neuroscientists. Like we want our members to be exposed to as much as possible so that they can decide what they want to do when they're older. So again, more so than building the next Elon Musk, I just want to give these kids an opportunity that they're not currently getting.
Yeah, it sounds like they're getting exposed to so much.
Yeah, they really are. And the results that are starting to happen, we're only just about 2 years old now, but the results so far are beyond what we expected. And I mean, the most exciting thing is just thinking about 5, 10, 15 years down the road, seeing what these kids now are going to be doing when they reach college age and after college. Yeah, I think it's going to be really beyond what we can even think of right now.
So currently, how many kids are attending Rocket Club? Like, what does the structure look like? There are multiple locations?
Yeah. So let me explain that. So before COVID, we had our location in Hoboken, New Jersey, a physical location that, filled up really quickly. So we opened up another one in New Jersey and 2 in Manhattan. And the fourth one was just opening in March, right as COVID came. And at that time, between the 4 locations, we had 150 members. When COVID hit, I realized very quickly we were not getting back into the physical locations anytime soon. So what I did was we opened up what's called Rocket Club Live, and we started to have all 150 members join an educational virtual game show every day. And then we would bring on one of these special guests, like the co-founders of these different companies. And the reason that I did that was because I knew how important Rocket Club was in these kids' lives. And I realized how vulnerable they must feel, how isolated they must feel. And I just wanted to provide something for them to be able to keep coming to Rocket Club. When we started that, we realized members used to just attend the physical locations once a week. Now these kids were joining every day of the week, and our overhead was infinitely lower. Well, at the time we were still paying rent on those units, but we realized that our overhead could be so much lower. So I started to roll out the actual entrepreneurship, coding, robotics curriculum into small classes, anywhere from 5 to 10 members, a dedicated instructor who's teaching the curriculum. And we realized that the curriculum was maybe taught even better virtually than it was in the physical location. And what was so interesting was these members who were either just in New Jersey or just in New York, now they started to be able to interact with each other. So the network effect was really cool. And then the word started to spread about what we were doing, and we started to get people from across the nation joining. And then we got some people abroad in the UK as well. So now we have a little over 200 members, but we started COVID with about 150. And we fully pivoted to a fully virtual curriculum now.
And you think that will be long lasting?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm so proud of the offering that we have now versus what we had in the physical location. I mean, I loved what we had in the physical locations, but now we have kids coming, 6-7 times a week. We have an internal Slack with kids all over the country and now worldwide that are talking all day, talking about their business ideas. We have the ability to bring on all of these interesting people and for our members to be able to experience them, because if we were just bringing them just into Hoboken, New Jersey, the other locations wouldn't necessarily be able to experience that. So it was always a long-term plan for us to move more virtually, but COVID really forced our hand. So we were able to do that sooner.
That first location in Newark, it sounds like it sold out really quickly. So you had a quick proof of concept. The demand was there from the students. What kind of reaction have you had from the many guests that you've come who are really mentors?
It's been overwhelming and it's just awesome. Like they all say that they wish they had this program when they were a kid, unprompted. Each and individual, everyone. If you go to rocketclub.com/virtual, you can watch like almost all of the 200 interviews between. And by the way, our members interview them. So our members are asking them questions about their job, about their startup, what they were doing as kids. And at the end, Morgan McDowell, who hosts our show, he asked them, what's your overall thought process on this type of education at this age? And they all say, I really wish I had this as a kid because there was nothing like this. And, a lot of them have asked what else they can do to help these kids. So we just hosted a huge business competition with all of our members that Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix, he hosted and actually, judged the business competition, hosted the trivia part of it. We have each team, we have 35 teams that the 200 members are broken up into. Each team has its own mentor, someone who is, who has either come on Rocket Club Live or has written to us and said, I love what you're doing. I'd love to help these kids. So we have actual mentors, advisors for each individual team. The response has been overwhelming and something that I just appreciate so much.
Coming up, Rocket Club's curriculum that includes pitching, competitive industry analysis, and financial statements. And this is not academic. You're going to hear how students are starting real-world businesses right now. All that and more right after this short break. The show notes for this episode can be found at inspiredmoney.fm/175. If you're listening in your car or wherever you are, check the show notes if you want to learn more about Alex, Rocket Club, and everything else mentioned in this episode. It's time for the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. All right, Inspired Moneymaker, thank you for listening today. Since it's the beginning of the year when I'm recording this, I want to encourage you to look at your finances and set some financial goals. Have you looked at your retirement accounts recently? If you have a 401k, have you checked your contribution amounts to see if that can be increased for each pay period? Make sure you update your beneficiary information. Look at your investments. Are you positioned the way you want to be? For example, if you've got a long time between now and retirement, are you invested for the long term? Or maybe you're retiring soon. Are you positioned more safely heading into retirement? I want to come clean with you. For many years, I spent all of my time focused on my clients' accounts. Have you ever heard the phrase, the shoemaker's children go barefoot? That pretty much described me. For our clients, we do research and analysis. We do financial planning. We're helping them to invest their money in alignment with their goals and values. My own account? Not so much. I either ignored it or I invested haphazardly. My wife asked me many times, when would I truly review our investments? If you have a spouse who's asking you, I know, I've been there. One positive that's come out of this pandemic is that over the past year, I did take the time. I took the time to review my accounts, to review my investments, and today I can proudly say that I'm invested alongside my clients. In other words, I can say that I'm eating my own cooking and my financial situation is better because of it. Whenever it is that you're listening to this episode, take the time to review your investments. If you need help, drop me a line. You can email me anytime at inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. To continue the spirit of sharing, I want to invite you to listen to my company's call covering 2020, the year in review, and our outlook for 2021. This is typically a call that's reserved only for our clients, but I want to give you, our Inspired Moneymaker, access to this call, and hopefully it'll help you. We'll be discussing our thoughts on the stock market, the economy, and the vaccine's impact on growth. That's the Runnymede Money Tip of the Week. Inspired Money is brought to you by Runnymede Capital Management. We help you to plan, invest, and worry less. If you need financial planning or need help with your investments, contact me directly at inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. That's inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. Fill out the form, hit submit, and your message will come directly to my inbox. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. Our Inspired Moneymaker of the Week wrote our first Apple Podcast review of 2021. I'm a listener, well, that's their handle on Apple, wrote a must-listen show. Andy's podcast is so engaging, and he brings on some super awesome guests. I highly recommend giving this show a listen. Thank you for that. So I checked, and Inspired Money right now has 85 reviews at Apple Podcasts. You would totally make my day if you can help me get that to over 100. If my words aren't good enough, would you dare defy Clint Eastwood? Would you?
Go ahead. Make my day.
You would totally make my day. If you're an iPhone user, search for and click on the purple podcast app, search for Inspired Money, and write a review. I promise to give you a shout out here on a future episode, and I really want to know, what is it that you're doing to inspire and make a bigger impact? Tell me your inspired money story. If you're not able to write a review, maybe you have an Android phone, you can always email me directly by going to inspiredmoney.fm/Andy. You're listening to Inspired Money. I'm Andy Wong. With Rocket Club Live, with the online virtual format, is it still a 2-year program? How does that work?
It is. Yeah, it's a 2-year program. So members come once a week for the 2-year program. And in addition to that, we have all these additional communities, which they can choose any of them that they want to come to. And that's also something that we didn't have in the physical locations before. So they're coming once a week, learning their entrepreneurship, coding, robotics curriculum. Then in addition to that, we have advanced robotics, advanced coding, 3D printing, public speaking, chess. We have Rocket Club Live. So we have all of these different communities that these kids can join now as well. And that's why they're coming up to like 6-7 times a week, because there's so many different activities for them to come to. And basically, we're going to keep adding on more and more activities as members and parents of the members tell us what they're interested in. We will continue to provide those types of experiences for the members.
When was the first sort of graduating class? Because if you started in 2018, you probably just had like the first 2-year group that completed.
Yeah, so I leased that space in Hoboken, the first location in the end of 2018, but the first class that ever started was February of 2019. So they're coming up on their graduation in about 2 months. It's coming up really soon. The thing that we get from all of them is that they don't want to leave. So we're figuring out continuing education for them now. The ones that are turning 14, I want to hire them back as assistant teachers. But yeah, the what we're getting from them is they're not looking to leave. So we need to provide more education for them. But they will be graduating with the first Rocket Club certificates, which I really hope in the future really holds some real value.
Well, I would assume that you being an entrepreneur really your entire life, it does require lifelong learning. Like you never stop.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had Josh Dobbs. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's an NFL quarterback on Rocket Club Live the other day. So he's an NFL quarterback and he's a NASA scientist. He's an unbelievably fascinating person. He had a really good quote where when he came on, he was saying, I didn't start training to be a NASA scientist or an NFL quarterback when I was 25 years old. I started when I was a kid. So it's really important to get ahead if you're going to be really focused on something and be really good at something. It's unbelievably important to start learning when you're a kid. And yeah, it's a pursuit your whole life. I'm learning every single day, but I'm learning based on a foundation of education that I've already had. So, if you're 25 and you start studying entrepreneurship, you're really starting in the beginning, right? If you're starting as a kid, you have so much to look back on and so many experiences to that point already.
Yeah, imagine all the mistakes and little failures that you go through if you started at age 8.
Yep.
By the time you're 20, you have a lot of wisdom.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're seeing that I really enjoy watching the mistakes happen. And right now, some of the examples are like emails that they're sending out to potential people that they want to sell their products to or partners, learning the right ways to do that, attempting to get certain press and not hearing back. Like a lot of these things that you do as an entrepreneur, they're doing it early and they're learning very quickly what is and is not working and what they enjoy doing and not enjoy doing. So yeah, they're so far ahead of their peers at this point. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're ahead of a lot of adults because they're learning so much that adults don't really learn. There's really no education for this type of stuff.
It's fascinating. I mean, I'm imagining what the robotics curriculum looks like and what the coding curriculum looks like, but I don't really know what the entrepreneurship curriculum looks like. Does that include, you talked about sending emails out and getting PR. I imagine that also includes pitching. Like, how do you pitch your idea if you're fundraising or trying to sell it to somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's all project-based. The way that we did it at the beginning of this past enrollment period, basically when we moved to virtual, the way that we started to do this was each individual team, all 35 teams, they created their own lemonade business. So we have 35 launched lemonade products right now. And they learned all about first, analyzing all of the competition in the lemonade market. So everything from Minute Maid on the economy side up to Joe's Organic on the premium side. Then thinking about, okay, where do you guys want to be? Where does your business want to be in that realm, right? Do you want to be like Toyota, who's worth $100 billion, or do you want to be like Porsche, that's worth $10 billion? If you're Toyota, you're going to have a much bigger market, but way more competition. If you're Porsche, you're going to have a very unique product, charge a lot of money, but your market is way smaller. So, and that's a pretty mind-blowing lesson for them, because they all assume that Porsche is going to be worth 10 times what Toyota's worth, right? But they learn quickly about the economy and premium market. Then they're going into actually learning about the income statement. And that's a huge part for me. I hope we kind of in this interview go into my mindset on projections and investors and things like that. But to me, it's so important for these kids to learn the absolute basics of business: revenues, expenses, and profit. Is your business going to be profitable, right? To me, I am not very impressed by people that raise a lot of money and have these crazy valuations. If their fundamental business doesn't make sense, that to me, I think, is teaching a group of entrepreneurs that are up and coming the wrong thing. I think people are way too focused on that. So we focus from the beginning on, what are you going to be selling your lemonade for? How much are the ingredients going to be? And what is your profit going to be? How big is your market going to be? What are your projections? How many do you think you're going to be selling? And then quickly after that, we're looking into, okay, are you going to be creating this lemonade on your own, or are you going to be actually finding a company that can handle your operation? And the team that actually got the most funding, so I put up a bunch of money to fund these individual lemonade businesses from this business competition. And I can't really give the results yet, because that information is coming out in the next month or so. But Mark Randolph chose how the funding would be divvied up. One of the teams that got a lot of funding, they chose to white label their products. So they actually found a partnership with a lemonade company that was willing to white label their brand, and they were able to put their brand on the white label on that lemonade. And then they were able to actually get a deal with Mighty Quinn's. I don't know if you know Mighty Quinn's. You're from New Jersey, so you might know them. They're an international barbecue chain. So they actually sell their lemonade through Mighty Quinn's now. But part of that whole thought process was, are you actually going to be making this lemonade on your own, or do you need a strategic partner who can do this for you? So after they're figuring out, how they're going to actually do their operations, then we start to go, we haven't even named the company yet. We haven't figured out the logo, anything like that. We want them to fully understand where they're going to be in the market and what their operations and finances are going to look like. Then we go into, okay, let's study what a logo that is black means, what a logo that's red means, what a blue logo is. So they learn about famous examples of logos. For instance, Rocket Club, black, it's sleek, it's a premium product because we only have a certain number of enrollment per year. It's a fairly expensive program. So, we have a black logo. Visa is blue because blue means more dependable. Purple, like for the Cadbury eggs and those things, those are purple. Those are more imaginative and fun. So they decide on their logo based on that education. Same thing with the names of companies. So they're learning about how these big companies have come up with the names, and then they name themselves. Then they actually go into learning about public relations, how they're going to get the word out about their company. Then they go into learning about business valuation. So based on the projections that they figured out, they look at what other beverage companies have sold for, and they figure out what the multiple was. So they take the net income or the EBITDA, and they figure out what these companies that sold for were and what the multiple was. So they figured out that the beverage industry has about a 10 times multiple on the value of a company. So they learn basically the income approach and along with the actual figuring out the cost approach as well. But they all understand the income approach is really the way that they're going to be looking at this. So they look at the income approach, and they all figured out the valuations of their business based on projections. And, valuations of their business are anywhere between $2,000 and $10,000. There's one team that values their business at about $180,000 based on projections. And based on the founders of that company, who are 12 to 14 years old, I highly believe that it is true, because they are just absolutely brilliant. So, they figure out the valuation of their company, and then we teach them about angel investors and venture capitalists. The difference of people who are investing their own money and people who are investing money that they've raised from other people, and they're going to be looking at a horizon for their money. So that's the type of entrepreneurial education that we're giving these kids. That's really the basics. And now comes in the future, which I won't really get into here, but there's so much more for them to learn. This week they're learning about mergers and acquisitions, and we're coming up with ideas that they have for companies that, if they strategically bought another company, how they could launch even bigger, right? Actually, I'll just give you one example from that because I think it's really interesting. One group thought of, okay, it'd be really interesting if one of these social platforms that are getting into augmented reality, if they bought Warby Parker or sunglass, I don't know, like Lens Crafters, any of these sunglass, these glasses companies, if they were to get that technology into those glasses, maybe they could launch smart glasses to be as quickly, as if they could launch those to basically be acquired as quickly as smartwatches. So everything that we're doing is project based. So they're basing it off of their own business, and we're teaching it in regards to that. Does that all make sense?
It does make sense. The partnership with Mighty Quins, is this theoretical, or will the business actually be launched?
No. It won't be launched. It is launched. Their lemonade is in Mighty Quins right now.
Wow. So, this is real world practical experience.
Yeah. Each team has actually made a sale so far. That's another part of just my theory on business. I don't want them to come up with a business plan. I don't want the pitches to be based on theoretical things. I want them to actually get a product out the door and then have a pitch that based on expansion of their business. So the whole point of the competition wasn't, this is my idea, give me funding to start it. It was, this is what we did with Alex's $100 for each company. Now we're looking for $1,000 to expand our company. So each business has actually launched their lemonade and sold lemonade.
It's incredible for kids who are age, what would you say, 7 to 14?
Yep, 7 to 14.
Wow. I would think that a curriculum like this, how many of the parents wish that they could participate instead of just sending their kids?
Yeah, some of them sit in the background during class. We see that. We get the sweetest messages from these parents. They all wish that they had this type of thing. They live a bit through their kids. We have a lot of chief operating officer parents. We love interacting with them on Instagram because a lot of these kids, now they've called the entrepreneurial bug through this lemonade project. So we have, maybe 40 of them who've launched their own individual businesses now. And the parents get so excited about that. They have a lot of fun with that part of it.
In my experience, entrepreneurship's not for everyone. So I'm curious, what percentage of your participants do you see actually launching businesses, independently?
Independently, we have about a quarter of them who have launched businesses so far. I think over time, over the 2 years, because a lot of them started, at different times, but, a lot of them are early on in the program. I think that we will see close to 100% by the end of 2 years. It's really just figuring out what they're passionate about. For me, when I was a kid, we all played poker. So that's what I was excited about. So it's really just continuing to work with them. And I think the network effect is really powerful too, because we do something called Launchpad on Thursdays where one of our members, talks about their business to all the other members, and the other members, based on what they've learned in class, they ask questions to that founder. And what we find is right after Launchpad, a lot of kids think of their own ideas and they email us okay, please send me all the forms so that I can fill them out about my new business idea. So we do that. So I would say after every Thursday, we have 1 to 3 new businesses launched after Launchpad.
Wow. That is so very cool. So who are these kids? Tell us about your members.
60% of the membership base are children of color, which I find really interesting. It's for many different reasons. Yeah, it's really interesting how diverse the backgrounds are. It makes for really interesting discussions when it comes to products. And I just think it's really great to be exposed to that at such an early age. For me, growing up in Westfield, New Jersey, I had a little bit of exposure to that, but not as much as I would have liked. So I think that's really cool. I made it a rule since day one. So I'm self-financing Rocket Club. It's a real passion project of mine. And I made a rule since day one that 50% of our membership base will either have a partial or full scholarship based on family income. So that's also led to an extremely diverse membership base. And just I really think that the products that they launch based on these different cultures coming together is really interesting.
So that's part of Rocket Club's mission, funding the scholarships?
Yeah. Which right now, as I said, like I'm self-financing this, so I'm funding these scholarships myself. But yeah, over time, we'll see how things develop. I didn't want the pressure of having to answer to investors, having to hit certain milestones. Like I wanted to hit my own milestones for this. So that's why it was so important for me to finance this so far. I think to answer your question, it will always be our mission to have at least 50% that are on scholarship, though, as members of Rocket Club.
I see more entrepreneurial programs at colleges and universities. What's the expectation for the members? Is it to go on to college? What if some of them create like a business and don't go to college? Like, what is that expectation for the next step in their education?
I don't think it's my place to give them that sort of expectation. My parents would have always wanted me to go to college. To me, it's completely up to them and their parents. I do think that we will see many of these kids, though, have very profitable businesses by the time they're 18. I mean, already some of them do. Annabelle White, who's 8 years old, like she started a stop motion company. She's doing deals now for Bobby Brown and Startup Squad and Gooseling Scandinavian luxury blanket brand. Like, you know, she's only 8 years old. She's going to make a lot of money by the time she's 18 years old. So I'm not sure. I just want them to have freedom. That's my goal. It's not to not go to college. It's not to go to college. I just want them to have every opportunity that they possibly could.
Yeah. When you have freedom, you have flexibility, you have choices, and you can make those choices when they arise. I know that you wanted to share about mindset, about investing, and about projected numbers.
Yeah, and I feel like you might find it interesting because you're a financial planner yourself, and obviously you have a lot of clients who think about this a lot. For me, in my career, I've always thought about cash flow for myself and how that relates to freedom. So when I was in college and I had my brokerage, I would say to myself, okay, as long as we get 10 rentals this month, this will cover all the bills. This will give me enough money to go out with my friends at night. Like, in order to expand the business a little bit, I need this much money. So I was more focused on making a certain amount of money to cover my life than I was on raising money from investors and having a really high valuation or anything like that. So in regards to the real estate, I was always looking at a year out, and I was basing my real estate funds based on how much cash flow I wanted to generate from that group of buildings. So, I would say, okay, I'm going to buy, renovate, rent, refi 15 buildings this year, and it'll yield an extra $100,000 of cash flow for my wife and I. I think that thinking in that type of way versus thinking about just a growth mindset nonstop, I think leads to a lot more freedom than if you're just thinking nonstop, okay, or if I thought nonstop about my real estate career, right? There was tons of people over time that were like, listen, I want to get in on what you're doing. I want to give you more money for this. But every time you take money like that, in my opinion, you're bringing on a boss. And I've been so lucky in my career to have just the most unbelievable investors. I've really only had 3 main investors invest in me, and they've all we share expectations up front. We work together. It's been incredible. But for me, I was always more focused on, okay, where do I want to get with my cash flow and freedom versus how big do I want to make this? And I think about that a lot with Rocket Club as well. Right now, we're scaling to a certain number of members. And when we hit that point, that's when I think I'll decide on my next move within Rocket Club. Am I going to expand the membership base, or am I going to keep it very small and open up a new type of product within Rocket Club that might be more scalable? At that point, will my wife and I have the amount of cash flow that we really think that we need to, have the lifestyle that we want for us and our future kids and everything? Do I have enough cash to continue to do this on my own, or do I need to raise money from investors to take this to the next level? So, I always think about things in regards to how much cash flow I'm bringing in versus just like a growth mindset.
Yeah, it's not growth at any cost.
Correct. Because I think that just, to me, would lead to losing my freedom, which is really what I work so hard to keep.
Yeah. So you got to keep your priorities in mind and in check. Alex, I like to ask all the Inspired Money guests, how do you define success?
To me, it's freedom. Always will be freedom. Just the ability to choose what I'm doing each day, the ability to choose big picture, what I'm focused on, help whoever I want, invest in any of the kids' businesses that I want. Just the ability to do what I want to do. That to me is the ultimate success.
Well, the Rocket Club, thank you for sharing your inspiring story and the inspiring stories of the members who are building businesses and learning. Can you tell the Inspired Money listener where to find out more and where to follow you?
Yeah. So if you go to rocketclub.com, you can see some of the stories on there. On our Instagram, there's even more, instagram.com/rocketclub. And over time on our Instagram, we'll definitely be posting more and more about our member stories. We have an awesome feature coming up on a morning news show where you'll see one of our members' success stories. But I definitely recommend Instagram. Instagram is where you'll be able to see a lot of their stories over the years.
Well, it's very exciting. I mean, they always say that the children are our future, and you're really empowering them to make that happen.
Thanks. Yeah, they're doing 99% of the work, though. It's a pleasure every day to work with them. It's amazing.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex.
Yeah, thanks so much, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
So what was your favorite Inspired Money moment? I really like what Alex is doing to teach and inspire young entrepreneurs. I also liked what he said about looking a year out and kind of reverse engineering how you're going to get there. And built into that was an interesting perspective, kind of going against this idea of infinite growth. He reminds us to think about and identify, where is it that we want to go? And more specifically, where do you want to get with your cash flow and freedom? So be mindful of your goals, keep them in sight so that you're not trying to grow at any cost. If you had a different favorite Inspired Money moment, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll give you a shout out here on the podcast. I'll also mail you an Inspired Money sticker or button. This episode of Inspired Money was edited by Christopher Wright of Wright Media. Thanks so much for joining me. If you haven't yet subscribed, please do it right now so that you won't miss next week's episode. I'll see you then. The music you're listening to right now and all other music on today's show is by the amazing Jim Kimo West. Have an inspired week and do something that scares you, because that's where the magic happens.